Hey guys, welcome back to Portal of Wisdom. I'm back today with another story. If you are new to the channel, like and subscribe and click that little post notification bell so that you get alerted when I post new videos. Most of you aren't subscribed, so go ahead and subscribe so you get alerted to content when I post it. And now on to today's story. So, did you know that there is a lost gold mine or a lost treasure trove in the Sierra Estrella Mountains, which is kind of a little southwest of Phoenix? It's kind of sandwiched between the West Valley of Phoenix and the town of Maricopa, Arizona. There is a long mountain range. It has very high peaks called the Sierra Estrellas, and this these peaks go from, or this mountain range kind of pops up off of the desert floor, and they're pretty tall mountains with some pretty good sized peaks in there. But there's no no rivers, hardly any trails. I believe a lot of it is probably still on Native American reservation, and they run a kind of a diagonal. Kind of diagonally from over close to the West Valley area, and then they go to the southeast almost all the way to Maricopa, Arizona. So it's a long range of mountains there. They're pretty desolate, pretty high peaks, very very dry, very deserty. They come up off of the desert floor. And anyhow, so we're going to tell a story about a Spaniard in 1847. His name is Don Joaquin, and he led a mining expedition into these mountains with hopes of finding gold. And he did eventually find gold, and what he did was, once he found gold, he did take a lot of the Native American people around there, and he enslaved a lot of them to work for him and bring the precious metal out of this mine that he had in these mountains. And this mine was located on what was called the Zigzag Trail, and really it still remains a bit of a mystery as to the details of the Zigzag Trail that led to the mine. But one day, as Joaquin was looking over his mining operations, one of the Native American scouts had told him that the American army was heading his direction. So the thing you got to think about this is 1847. In 1847, this is all part of Mexico, and the, Spanish territory and everything. In 1848, I believe, is when the United States took this territory. At least at that point, I think it might have been north of the Gila River, which this is still a little bit south of the Gila River. But the army's coming. This area is about to become new United States territory. So this is a year prior to that. So the army's coming, and without the reinforcements and without enough people, Joaquin decides that he needs to kind of close down his mine for the time being and plans to return to it a little later on. But he decides, well, we need to pack up, load up all of our gold, and head back to Mexico and, back into the heart of Mexico or whatever. But he loads up like 3,000 pounds of gold onto the backs of 15 mules. And he had some of his men head up that zigzag trail toward Butterfly Peak and then continue on towards Montezuma's Head. And the group turned into this short little box canyon halfway down the trail. And at that point, Don Joaquin saw this cave, and he decided that, I suppose he figured he was loaded down too much and might not be able to stay ahead of the army. So he saw this cave there, and he decided that they would bury all of their gold in this cave and be able to come back for it a little bit later. And the Native American scout that that was with him when he found this cave. That Native American scout was then killed, is what the rumor says. So the remainder of his men, as they were told to wait at a nearby butte after the cache of gold was hidden. So I guess at this point only Woking and the Indian scout or Native American scout knew where this cave was, because he sent the rest of his crew up on the butte, I think, to watch the army coming and keep an eye out on things. So he sends them ahead. He's a little behind with the mules, and the scout and Woking find the cave. They dig and bury this all of this gold in this cave, and then Woking unfortunately murders the Native American scout, and then at that point he goes up to the butte, and they see the approaching army, and the men try to get ahead of the army at that point. Now they're not loaded down, and they plan to come back for the treasure. So that was what the plan was. However, greed can make men, resort to a lot of different things, and that first night, what happened was some of Don Wokeen's men, they murdered him for his treasure map. And so they're still at risk of the army, the American army coming and everything. So Woking is killed. His men escaped to Mexico with the map that Woking had drawn, and these guys kind of know the area because they've been there. But like I said, and the next year, this area becomes like New Mexico, Arizona territory, becomes part of the U.S. and it made it a lot harder for Spaniards or Mexican people that had mining claims up in the area. They were no longer valid. So anyhow, this wasn't something that probably anyone planned on. So nothing was heard about this mine for like 35 years, until one day there was an old guy that showed up in Phoenix, and he had the original treasure map, and he went searching the peaks for the gold, and I suppose looking for the cave and maybe looking for the mine, and but like I had mentioned, this area, it's still, I believe it's still on Native American land, or at least this mountain range is, a good portion of it is on Native American land, even today. And so I'm sure it wasn't, outsiders probably weren't welcomed into the area even back then. So this man supposedly searches for the mine and the cave, and I don't believe anything ever came of it. So the hostile Native American people, they drive him out of there. He returns back to Mexico. No one ever knew what happened to the man or the map, but last anyone heard, there's still a treasure out there in a cave, and then possibly, obviously, still a mine that might be somewhat concealed or covered up in those in the Sierra Estrella Mountains in the Phoenix area. It's not too far away, but man, that area is very desolate. There's no streams or creeks or anything that come out of there. There's no water. It's pretty brutal terrain. But maybe one of these days someone will find the cave with the buried treasure, or the old mine that they mined the gold from. So if you like these kind of stories, go ahead and like and subscribe to my channel.